that song, the guy who wrote it, he put out an entire album about losing a parent at a young age. And so that song really resonated with me. And a couple years ago when I gave my testimony here, I actually used the same song as the bumper. And we put up the first one. Next one.
Sorry.
Next one.
Okay.
There we go. All right, so this is the first verse in it. And it's awesome because it says, in another life, in another place, maybe you'd have found what brings some to believe. On a different road, in a perfect space, maybe all the hurt you know would fail to be. keep it on.
Okay.
And it's awesome because that right there explains a lot of people's different views on their walks in faith, because we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know how we're going to react to something like that. And with it, he actually walked down a different path than I did, because I lost my mom when I was 14. And it actually brought me closer with God. And with him, he actually walked away from his faith. But that's what I find funny about this song is, all right, next one. The chorus says repeatedly that love can only heal. And it says, never mind the pain, because love can only heal. If only you could trade the dark for light, it might reveal that there's a place inside. Don't be afraid to feel, because love can only heal. And that's the big part in it, is love can only heal. And in 1 John 4:8, it says, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. So without him really knowing it, he wrote an entire song explaining what can help you get through hard times, and that's God. And over the last really year now, we've been cooped up, either through quarantine or just everything shutting down. We've seen a lot of people turn peaceful protests into very violent things, and people getting super ugly with the election. And that's not what we're called to do. We're called to know God, and if we know God, we can show love to other people in the way that we need to. And being on social media, you see a lot of the exact opposite of that. So, and all of that stuff shows 2 points that the verse made. And that's, one, we don't live in a perfect space, and that we can all take different roads depending on how we respond to things that happen in our lives. And it's hard to do in that moment, but we have to always turn towards God, because God will help us find a way to not only deal with whatever happened, but turn it into a positive outcome. Like this. I absolutely hate public speaking, but here I am.
Praise God.
And that it took me a long time to get to the point of being able to talk about a lot of the stuff that happened, but it put me in a position to where if something like that happens to somebody else, I can help guide them through something like that. First John 4:16 says, and so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. So if we're not showing the love that can help heal things, we're not showing a godly life. And if we're not showing a godly life, all we're doing is spreading more hate. And the part that always stuck out to me in the chorus is the, if only you could trade the dark for light. Because we can't. John 1:3-5 says, "Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So no matter what we go through in life, it can't outdo what God has planned for us. And if we can see through all of that, then we can actually do what God has called us to do. Next one. Oh, yeah. So, like with all of this, a lot of my journey, and it has to do with losing my mom at a young age. And if it weren't for really all of the people back there, they've played a huge part in everything. CJ, like Kurt said earlier, was in charge of the youth group when I first started coming here. And she used to bug me constantly because I wanted to learn how to play an instrument. And that, when I finally agreed to it, that's what started my journey back into faith. And that's why I love the idea of using the song to write something, because Lindsay gave me the idea a few years ago. She wrote one based off of the song Zombie. That we did that the entire time, because that song gets stuck in your head super easy. But and then Kurt helped me with all of the music aspect whenever I finally started learning. And there was just a overwhelming feeling that I couldn't deny when I did any of the music stuff. And Emily gave me the chance to do what I'm doing now. And she's the reason why I know how to play bass, because she stopped doing it.
Hey, you started on bass.
I did start on bass.
Rob, don't even play like that.
Well, I started on bass because you stopped playing bass.
That's fine.
Maybe you should tell her to start playing bass.
You don't even know me.
Out of the mouth of babes.
But,
He doesn't even go here. I'm so happy most of you didn't know that.
no, I lost my train of thought.
So sorry. Here, does the next slide help? Or is this the one that I missed?
That's one that you missed.
Oh, shoot.
You gotta pay
That's
attention.
a little bit my fault, because we don't actually have anything there, and I just kind of ran straight through all of this.
It's okay, that's the last one anyway.
It is the last one. But doing stuff like this isn't really in my skill set. I like doing the music stuff more. But when God laid this on my heart, first thing I did was got in contact with Kurt and was like, hey, feeling called to do this, can we set up at some point and let me do it? and I regret it really bad. But we've got to just stick through what God has planned for us. Because when we do that, it'll open up more doors to where we can continue to spread the gospel. That's kind of all I got.
Yeah, right.
I thought it was going to go a little bit longer.